Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Today on the program, the United States vows to help modernize the Philippine military even as China continues to insist on its claims in the West Philippine Sea. The Chinese embassy tells the Philippines to stay vigilant and resist being exploited. And the Philippines allows the U.S. to expand its military presence in the country. Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Manuel Romualdez, joins us in the show. Manila gives Washington the go signal to set up more camps in the country. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says this is part of efforts to fight what he calls China's illegitimate claims in the West Philippine Sea. Our senior correspondent David Santos reports.
The Philippines is granting the United States wider access to its military camps. Under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA, Manila will allow expanded presence of U.S. troops and their facilities. When it was approved in 2014, only 5 AFP camps were designated, 3 in Luzon and 1 each in Visayas and Mindanao. Following their meeting in Camp Aguinaldo on Thursday, the two defense leaders jointly announced the addition of 4 more EDCA locations.
And that brings the total number of EDCA sites to 9. And I'm grateful to President Marcos for this decision. EDCA is not about permanent basing here in the Philippines. It's about providing access that allows us to increase our training opportunities with our partners, our allies here.
We are looking forward that we will have a high drive of some activities with our allies.
The 4 new sites have yet to be identified, but there were earlier reports these will include Cagayan Province, Isabela, and Zambales, all notably facing China and Taiwan.
And the President wanted that all of our actions should be consulted with our local governments.
The U.S. government will spend $82 million or roughly 4.4 billion pesos for the construction of facilities inside the first 5 EDCA sites. Aside from strengthening their defense alliance, the increased presence of U.S. forces is also seen as boosting humanitarian relief during disasters. The two officials also reiterated their commitment to mutual defense in case either armed forces come under attack within the Indo-Pacific region. This comes amid growing concerns over China's aggressive actions in the West Philippine Sea and tensions over self-ruled Taiwan.
That's just part of our efforts to modernize our alliance. And these efforts are especially important as the People's Republic of China continues to advance its illegitimate claims in the West Philippine Sea.
Before his bilateral meeting in Camp Aguinaldo, Austin traveled to Camp Navarro in Zamboanga City. American troops have been stationed there for more than 2 decades in what could be seen as a template for the concept of EDCA. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
China, meanwhile, warns this move from the U.S. could hurt regional stability and raise tensions in the region. In a statement, the Chinese embassy in Manila accuses U.S. Defense Secretary Austin of, quote, smearing China over the South China Sea to advance the anti-China political agenda of the U.S. Beijing says defense and security between countries should not target against or harm the interests of any third party. It adds the anti-China political agenda of the U.S. runs counter to the, quote, common aspiration of Filipinos to pursue sound economic recovery and better life in cooperation with China. It also says that the Philippines should be vigilant and avoid being taken advantage of. Let's go straight to the source of the story. Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Manuel Romualdez. Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning, Mai. Morning.
Let's start with the meeting of President Marcos with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. What were the highlights of that exchange?
Well, it was a very cordial meeting. As always, the President express and articulate what he thought our relationship with the United States should be, and that is, as he described it, evolving relationship. And all of these conversations on many of the military alliances that we have with the United States, like the Visiting Forces Agreement, EDCA, and also even disaster resiliency was discussed by the President with Secretary Austin.
Ambassador, what were commitments made by both countries in terms of defense cooperation? I know the EDCA was the highlight as well, but was there anything in particular also that President Marcos asked the U.S. side in terms of defense capabilities?
Well, our defense capabilities and the modernization of our armed forces is foremost in this administration, even in past administration. So the United States has been continuously helping us in bumping up our armed forces and modernizing it. And these are all for defense, for our defense capabilities. So that is the reason why EDCA and BFA are very important, because we do exercises with the United States. So there was nothing really that the President was asking for, except that he just wanted to reassure the United States, particularly Secretary Austin, that we will continue to pursue what we have always been pursuing, that we will be able to defend ourselves. Hopefully, the time will never come that there will be a conflict in our area.
Well, was the scenario of joint patrols in the West Philippine Sea discussed during the meeting? How did that pan out?
Well, the joint, it's actually, we don't call it joint patrol, but joint exercises, maritime exercises. That's always been on the table. We've had that agreement with the United States far back as 10 years ago. And it's merely just simply probably looking at reviving that maritime exercises that we have had with the United States. So that was discussed in general, and the details of this will be discussed by Secretary Galvez.
Well, of course, the announcements yesterday comes as in the face of China's increasing assertiveness over Taiwan and these unresolved issues in the West Philippine Sea. But also what stood out was modernizing the Philippine military and interoperability between the Philippines and the U.S. Could you give us more specifics on this?
Well, interoperability, as I've said, is very important for us because clearly the United States is the number one military, like the only treaty country that we have. So I think it's only natural for us to work with them. And all of this is geared towards defending ourselves in any area, the West Philippine Sea. So we just want to make sure that our territorial waters are secure and that it is, as the President said, what is ours is ours. And if there are other claims in the area, then we will have to either discuss it with them, but we definitely will protect, especially our fisheries.
Well, any pledges made by the U.S. in terms of funding the Philippine Armed Forces modernization program, and also how about weapons and assets? Were there agreements forged about these?
That's an ongoing discussion. As a matter of fact, we've said this during our bilateral strategic dialogue, which we had about 2 weeks ago with the United States. And there is a plan for a 2+2, meaning our Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Defense of the United States, together with our Secretary of Foreign Affairs, and the State Secretary will have a meeting in Washington, D.C. Come spring. So a lot of things will be discussed with the United States at that time.
Ambassador, just to follow up on what you said about joint maritime exercises, what kind of exercises will these be, and when will these possibly happen? And what could we expect this year in terms of defense cooperation?
Well, this is as I said, this has been an agreement since before. So the details of this are obviously being discussed by our defense establishment together with the defense establishment of the States. Hopefully, we will be able to implement this agreement the maritime exercises within the next couple of maybe as early as a month from now, hopefully.
All right, Ambassador, I'd like to discuss the 4 new EDCA sites that were announced. But first, we will be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Our source today, Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel "Babe" Romualdez. Good morning again, Ambassador. Now, let's talk about the 4 new EDCA sites. Both Secretary Austin and Defense Secretary Carlito Galvez announced that there will be 4 new Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA sites. How was this justified, Ambassador?
Well, it's an agreement that we've had since 2000, I believe in 2016, when we signed an agreement that we will have an enhanced defense cooperation with the United States. And that includes, obviously, the upgrading of our bases in many parts of the country. It's an ongoing thing, as I said, Mai. So it's really, I know that there are a lot of people who are putting meaning to all of this, well, probably rightly so, but the fact is, we've had this agreement, and that we will continue to pursue what we feel would be best for the country in terms of our defense capabilities. Mm-hmm. That is number one and foremost in the minds of many Filipinos, including the administration of President Marcos. So we want to be able to defend ourselves and work with our allies like the United States. So at the same time, we also are aware that climate change is upon us. And we've had so many disasters, especially in the northern part of Luzon. So I think that this EDCA will definitely, well, we all know that it will help, because this will make sure that we have enough resources in those areas so that we can respond immediately to any disaster that may arise out of climate change. So all that is definitely for the good of the country.
Could you tell us where the sites will be, and can you confirm if the previously announced sites in Isabela, Zambales, and Cagayan, are we still talking of these same areas?
I'm afraid I can't really. All I know is these general areas that have been discussed. The studies are being made by our defense establishment, and so the announcement will really come from them. Once this thing is ready. As I said, it's an agreement that we've had. We've agreed to have 4 more out of the 5 now, so we will have a total of 9. And all of this will be announced simultaneously by the United States and the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. Ambassador, what were the basis for identifying or choosing these particular sites?
Well, as I said, for our defense capabilities, that's important. And as I said, also for disaster resiliency, for preparedness. These are the 2 main reasons why we have EDCA, so that we can be ready at any given time with the help or with the cooperation of the United States in responding rapidly to any eventuality that may happen. And these areas are very, very much vulnerable to climate change. And for defense capabilities, it's very clear why we have these sites that are being discussed right now.
Well, after identifying these sites, what is next? What's the next step here? And will the LGUs have a say here?
Well, the president has always cooperated with the local governments. So he always wants to make sure that the local governments are looking at this as an advantage for them. Mind you, this is also going to be good in one sense, that these developments will help in the economy in the local area. So that's also a big plus as far as we're concerned. We can see that it will help the economy of the local government or the local areas where this EDCA sites will be put up.
Well, some groups who are against EDCA say they will discuss with communities who are opposed to these EDCA sites. Will this be a challenge, do you think?
Well, this is a free country. Everyone has an opinion. We have to respect the opinion of people. If it is, obviously, if it is something that is justified, then definitely the government of President Marcos will listen to them. But at the end of the day, what is important is what is best for the country. And I think that there is no question that clearly 85% of Filipinos would like the United States to continue cooperating and working with us in our defense capabilities. I think that that's very significant in that sense. You know, we have to listen to the majority of the people who believe in that one. And that's the reason why I think there is no question that what we're doing is for the best interest of our country.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a call for clarification. Will these new EDCA sites function as military bases, or will this be used for other functions? And also one group in particular, Pamalakaya, has expressed concern that the expansion of U.S. presence here might escalate tensions in the West Philippine Sea.
Well, first of all, not at all. These EDCA sites are being run by Filipinos. So the United States is coming in to develop it so that it will have capabilities that will work with our forces and the forces of the United States. And we have the Visiting Forces Agreement, which is a rotation of soldiers. Exercises are being conducted. And so these areas will have a lot of those exercises. Again, the bottom line is this is really for purely defense purpose. Now, if we talk about the West Philippine Sea, I think everybody knows that there is tension in the area. We're trying to bring it down. President Marcos went to China and talked to President Xi and told him very straight manner that this issue is something that we have to talk. We have to discuss. And so he has come out with a proposal that the communication between the two leaders will be in the foreign ministry, on that level of our foreign ministry, will be able to, if there's any issue, they can immediately call each other. That is the diplomatic way of doing things. But at the same time, we also need to protect our fishermen. You know, I tell you, I went with Vice President Harris to Palawan, and I saw the fishermen who were very happy to see the Vice President, because that is a commitment made by the United States to help us in securing our territorial waters. They would like to see us be able to protect our fishermen just as we do. And that's very important. These are fishermen that they've had that livelihood for centuries, and now they're being prevented on many occasions from continuing their livelihood. That's absolutely unfair. And so we would like to work with like-minded countries that they will be able to do what we've been doing, which is to protect our territorial waters and protect our fishermen to do their livelihood. That's very important, I think, and everyone knows that.
Yes, so Ambassador, just to be clear, what is the nature of the EDCA sites? Will these serve as training camps or offices? Because our EDCA already allows visiting forces to indefinitely stay in rotating batches in barracks and other buildings constructed within designated Philippine camps. So what is the difference now?
Excuse me. Well, there's really not much difference. Like I said, the EDCA sites are really the movement of our forces. Since you have bases in many of these areas, by putting our forces together there, it will definitely help us. You see, in other words, the areas that have been identified or are being identified will help in the mobility of our soldiers and making it easier for them to be doing a lot of exercises in the specified areas that they've identified. That's what that thing is all about.
All right. So what is the timeline for these EDCA sites? Because I think we have an upcoming Balikatan exercises in April?
Well, the development of these areas will take time. What is important is the study that is being made as of this time. And hopefully, once those studies have been completed, this will now be up for completion or for confirmation that we have agreed that these EDCA sites will be developed by the United States for the use of our soldiers and for the use of the rotating forces of the United States.
All right, I'd like to talk.
Hopefully soon.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the upcoming trips of President Marcos and also the South China Sea dispute. But first, we need to take a short break. Ambassador, this is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our source today, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez. Ambassador, I'd like to just touch on what to expect in the coming months, particularly a month from now. Do we expect the revival of joint maritime patrols or exercises and also the Balikatan exercises?
Well, the Balikatan exercises have been planned already. I think we're going to have quite a number of them this year. The maritime, as I said, we're already studying the possibility of continuing that, an agreement that we signed with the United States many years ago. And all of that will, again, be part and parcel of our visiting forces agreement with the United States.
Well, also during the briefing between Secretary Austin and Secretary Galvez, the U.S. official mentioned the need to modernize the alliance because of China's continuing and illegitimate claims in the West Philippine Sea. Ambassador, what kind of modernization are we looking at?
Modernization for our maritime, you mean?
Yes, and also for the AFP modernization program.
Yes, the AFP modernization program, actually, as I said, ongoing. We have purchased already. We're purchasing a total of I think 32 Black Hawk helicopters. 16 have been delivered or more, and then the United States is also providing funding for upgrading some of these Black Hawk helicopters into being able to have heavy lift capabilities. We're also looking at having fighter jets for our security. Hopefully that also is ongoing. I'm not sure where we are, whether we are going to get the American-made F-16s from Lockheed, or we're getting it from another supplier in Europe. All that is being planned out already, together with our friends and allies, not only with the United States, but Australia and Japan and South Korea.
Mm-hmm. Well, yesterday's announcements prompted a statement from China saying the Philippines should be vigilant and resist being exploited. And Beijing also said the U.S. is accelerating tension and undermining peace and stability in the region. Your thoughts on this, Ambassador?
Well, every country has its own interpretation. To us, we're only doing what is rightfully our right to defend ourselves. None of these moves are being directed to any country. We all know that defense capabilities is very important, especially nowadays with the changing world. We want to be able to protect ourselves, and that is the only reason why we are doing this. There is no plan to go against any country. I don't think we've ever, in the history of the Philippines, we've never declared war against any country. It is them that attacked us in the past history. So that's really the essence of this whole idea of of having an ally like the United States as part of our defense strategy to make sure that we will continue to be able to defend ourselves if and when the time comes.
Well, Ambassador, how then can the Philippines sustain cordial relations with both superpowers?
Well, I think we're doing a good job. I think we have been telling our friends, our Chinese friends, that we don't want real trouble. As the president clearly said, we don't have any issue with China. The issue is that they're claiming part of our territory, which is exactly what it is. So what are we going to do? We simply can't say that, okay, whatever you claim is yours. That's number one, that's against the Constitution. The President of the Republic of the Philippines is mandated to protect the territorial integrity of the Philippines. And that's exactly what he's doing. And also, we have been doing this. Not only President Marcos, but all presidents have done what they could to protect the territorial integrity of our country.
Finally, Ambassador, can we get an update on the possible visit of President Bongbong Marcos to the U.S. in the spring? He did say that he is cutting down on foreign trips. And now, will the U.S. trip push through?
Well, last year, when the second gentleman came and joined the inauguration of President Marcos, second gentleman of the United States, he delivered a letter coming from President Biden, who expressed his desire to invite President Marcos in Washington, D.C. And as we all know, President Marcos met with President Biden, and a trip, an official trip or a state visit to Washington, D.C. was also mentioned. So as ambassador, obviously, I have been talking to the White House, and it's all a matter of scheduling. So it's really the schedule of both President Marcos and President Biden that's the key here. We're trying our best to put it together, but I don't think anyone will criticize a trip by President Marcos to Washington, D.C., considering that the United States is our number one ally. Secondly, we've not had a Philippine president go to Washington in the past, I think, 8 years now. The last time was President Noynoy Aquino. So it's all part and parcel of our diplomatic foray in the global world. And I think, as I've always said, trips of the president is really a must. Mm-hmm. The value that it brings to the country is you cannot put value into it in dollars and cents, but more on the kind of goodwill that it does. Because we have a new president now, and it's good for him to be able to go to these countries, not only to meet their leaders, but at the same time be able to interact with many of the important leaders not in the business world. And the other thing I must add, we have 12 million Filipinos living abroad. We have a lot of the OFWs. The euphoria that they have when they see their president in their area is also something that's well worth it. We all know what the OFWs have contributed to our economy. And I think for them to just be able to see, hear their president is also something that we should consider as our way of thanking them for the hardship and the sacrifices that they make for our country.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you for your time this morning. Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel "Babe" Romualdez. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Mai Rodriguez. You're watching CNN Philippines.